Hello again. This video explains how I created a cabinet or lift-up hatch for my Jeep Commander. It is a modification that can be done after you remove your third row of seats. If you haven't done so already, you can follow another video which guides you through the process of removing your third row. You can find a link to it in the description. Let's get started. Firstly, you don't need many tools. A long ruler, tape measure and marker is good. You'll also need a saw or jigsaw to cut the wood. You can do this modification a number of ways and improvise for what you have available. I used MDF, as I had lots left over from another project, but you can use many types of wood. MDF is cheap and is strong enough for this purpose. After measuring the dimensions, I plotted it out on the MDF and marked it out. I left it a little short on the height. This was to account for the sheet of laminate that I placed on top. Then, I cut the required lengths I needed using a saw and then test fitted them in the rear space. I had to trim more off as I went to get it perfectly square. Just keep taking little bits off the ends of the MDF until you get a nice and flush box shape. You can then join the ends together and secure them to maintain the shape you ended up with. I used these little L-shaped brackets. Once you've done that, remove the box and put it on the ground. Make sure the box is square and then measure the dimensions for the lid. Mark the lid on some more MDF and cut that out too. Make sure it fits nice and flush. It doesn't have to be perfect. Now we can fit the rear hinge. I got a long hinge from my local DIY store. It's perfect for this job. Line it up nice and central and put a few screws in the ends. You can then test that the lid opens and closes properly before fitting the rest of the screws. Now we can fit the laminate flooring cover. This stuff is also very cheap. I opted for a darker color to complement my interior. Lay the panels on top of your box and click them together. Make sure you have the bit of wood that stick out on the same side, as these will be cut off when it's trimmed down to shape. Click them all together securely. Next, line the new one-piece panel up so that the flush edge is flush against one side of the lid and a long edge of the lid. Using a marker, mark a line from underneath the other edges to create your cut lines. Now that you have cut lines, flip the panel over and cut it to size. When flipping it over, be careful. If you bend the panels, they can come apart again. It's no big deal but can be annoying. Once I had cut them to size, I used 3M super strong double-sided tape to keep the panel in position on top of the lid so it doesn't move or slide. You can just use a long screw in each corner if you don't have this tape. Lastly, I cut out a hole using a jigsaw and fitted a load restraint ring to act as a lift handle. I opted for this because if a dog is in the back, it could get its toes stuck when moving around. A dog would have a bed in the back anyway, but it's just a precaution. It's spring-loaded so won't come up by itself. That's it. Lift the box into the back of your car and make sure it's seated correctly. Open and close the lid to make sure it works. Then, put your second row of seats up and test it again. If you can open and close it freely, then you're all done. Congrats! You can now not only store things where your third row of seats used to be, but it also fills the void that allows you to do car camping. You can use a blow-up mattress or similar now. Your dog also won't have to jump in the car, and then compete with a drop-down which could injure it. Personally, I'll be using this to store expensive equipment such as cameras where it won't be seen by people who may look to steal them. I can also use it to store tools and clothes, dog food, camping supplies, etc. for traveling. This is a great mod if you don't need those rear seats. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video and there's more to come. Drive safe.